Hello, Millennium Fellows. As you enter the Zoom call, please make sure to drop your name, country, and university in the chat. Feel free to share forms of social media also. Welcome once again to today's global webinar with the Millennium Fellowship. My name is Adiba Wasike, and I'm a fourth-year public policy major with minors in computer science and Spanish at the Georgia Institute of Technology, located in Atlanta, Georgia. And today I will be your moderator. I'm so grateful to be named a Millennium Fellow, and my project targets SDG 4, quality education. My goal is to educate disenfranchised communities about data protection. I was in a data protection class when I decided to do this project, and a quote stood out to me that we covered. Marginalized populations are often affected first and hardest by privacy invasive actors, and current data protection materials don't really target these populations. I hope I can make an impact by increasing awareness of individuals' data protection. Right now, I would like to take the time to introduce Faisal, a Millennium Fellow who will introduce himself and his project now.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. I am Faisal Minawi, a senior computer science student at the American University of Beirut, and I have the privilege of serving as a campus director. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you all today. My passion lies in the intersection of technology and social impact, and I am deeply committed to harnessing the power of emerging technology to address critical issues. In this semester of the Millennium Fellowship, my primary goal is to support my fellows in making the most of this incredible opportunity. I want to ensure that everyone enjoys the training, find valuable connections, and receive the assistance they need for their project to thrive. As an emerging technologist, my main objective is to turn the project Empowered into a tangible reality. This initiative was a response for educational crisis in Lebanon due to the continuous strikes made by the public schools. We aim to bridge educational gaps and transform lives in Lebanon, aligning with the UN SDGs. However, my aspirations extend beyond Empowered. I hope to connect with like-minded individuals who share a passion for leveraging advanced technologies like AI to tackle complex global challenges. In the long run, I am committed to use technology as a force for positive change and contributing to the achievement of at least one SDGs. I firmly believe that together, as a part of the incredible Millennium Fellowship community, we can collaborate and innovate to shape a brighter future. I encourage you all to connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's embark on this journey together and make a lasting impact. Thank you. I am genuinely excited to be part of this global webinar with you all. Now, I am excited to invite Divine Favor to share his story and the project.
Okay. Good day, everyone. My name is Enwerizo Chinemrem Divine Favor, and I am an undergraduate student, a final year student of Applied Geophysics at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Nigeria. So basically, my project topic is Anaku Groundwater Research Project, which I remodeled to clean water and hygiene. So my interest was spurred right from a young age, where I grew up in a part of Nigeria, in the southeastern Nigeria, where it was hard to find groundwater, fresh water per se. So the basic water source, which was surface water, was mostly contaminated. And this issue has been extended towards so many places. So my interest in Anaku specifically sprung up as a result of my internship opportunity over there in Anaku to serve as a technologist and a groundwater enthusiast there. So I served as an intern there and noticed the lack of potable water in the area. So my project aims to address the issue. As an emerging technologist, I aim to employ various geophysical tools in assessing groundwater assessments in the area, finding the aquifer depth, and then using the data generated to inform and enlighten on freshwater sourcing in the area. Due to the lithology and geological distribution of the area, it's most times hard to find a potable and sustainable water source. So I hope to advise the community on how to progressively utilize their water resources and equally educate them, since the water used over there is basically surface water, which is most times contaminated due to open defecation and irregulated use, since it's publicly used. So I hope to inform them and enlighten them on how to manage the water resource that they have and equally proffer solutions through my research that will help introduce a better potable water use in the community. So I hope to connect with like-minded individuals who are interested in water sustainability in SDG 6 and SDG 4 for education, and equally to link up with others in progress. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Faisal and Divine Favor for sharing their projects. As the image said on the screen, feel free to share your project in the chat box. I would like to take the time to introduce our host for today, Kate Cummings. Luckily, we have an expert in the field of social impact and technology today. Welcome, Kate. Kate will have the opportunity to introduce herself, and then we will go into a Q&A section where we will open up questions to the audience towards the end of the webinar. So please ask questions in the chat, and I will keep a lookout for them. Before we begin, I would like to take the time to read Kate's bio. Kate Cummings is a research fellow at the Burns Center for Social Change and the Governance Lab. Kate leads Innovate US, the Governance Lab's innovation skills training for public sector employees, as well as works on supporting civic leaders in gaining access to equitable public engagement insights. Kate started her career as an organizer, first for Barack Obama and subsequently for campaigns including leading Hillary Clinton's 275-person team in Virginia in 2016. Since then, she has applied those experiences on behalf of mission-driven technology companies. Most recently, she led customer enrollment and experience at TrialSpark, a Series C healthcare company. Before that, she led the customer experience and community team at Meetup, serving more than 250,000 members around the world. Kate is also working with New York City's health and hospitals, helping the city improve its contact tracing and community outreach program. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And as I know it, and James will correct me if I'm wrong, I think I have about 20 minutes to share a little bit about my background, and then most importantly, get into your questions and get into conversation. I want to start up front just by saying that I am so impressed, not just by the projects that were shared this morning, but by the work that you all are committed to do and the strength of this program globally. And so what I have chosen to share today is just my own path, not to be prescriptive. I have far more to learn from you, I think, than you all have to learn from me, but I hope that it is some kind of a journey, if you will, to inspire you to think about how you might want to take your next, whether it's 3, 5, 20, 50 years on your path towards impact. So I'll start a little bit and just share about my current role and focus. I'll dive into kind of how I got there and what questions are interesting to me today. And then lastly, I'll just close with 3 pieces of advice that I kind of wish had sunk in with me when I was finishing up my college years and starting to think about how I wanted to have impact on the world and what that might look like and how that path may shift. So in advance, I will go ahead and toss in my email, my LinkedIn. Please do connect with me. Feel free to reach out. I wouldn't have done the things I have done had it not been for people making the similar offer. So I really do mean it and look forward to connecting with you all in the future and taking many of your questions. So first and foremost, what do I do today? So I'm a fellow at the Burns Center for Social Change. I get to work alongside people who have been leaders in government and academia, folks like former US Labor Secretary, former editor of the New York Times, who are all kind of working on this question around how can we help people be better solvers of public problems. About 2 years ago, I launched an initiative called Innovate US. I tossed the link in the chat. This is US focused. It's the first of its kind. It's a collaborative across 10 US states We work with leaders in state governments to help them train public sector workers, so people who work for the government, primarily on two things. How do they engage the communities they serve in the projects and programs that they take on, so that those programs can be more designed with the lens of the people who are actually receiving government benefits, and so the government is really held accountable to the experience that they're creating for those communities. And the second piece is, how do governments use data to drive decisions, and how is the data that they're collecting and understanding really done it with an equity lens? And so we supply training, professional development, and really learning opportunities for people to come together who are working on shared problems, to be able to tackle those with community wisdom, community insights, and really good data to evolve the way the government is engaging residents. So that's how I spend my day to day, and happy to share more about that one-on-one. But I thought I'd take a step back and talk a little bit about how I got here in terms of doing the work that I'm doing. And as I said, what I'm sharing is not prescriptive. I think that these paths can be very winding, but I want to share a couple of things that I have kind of held near and dear as I have thought about my own path to have social impact, and how that path has changed over the last 10, now 15 years. And how I find that what you end up doing and how you end up spending your time is often dictated by how you respond to both unforeseen opportunities and unforeseen failures. So let me get started. So in college, I studied public policy and law. When I was a junior, I had the chance to intern in the Obama White House. So it was 2010. He had been elected in 2008. And I witnessed kind of two things that really made a mark on my life. I got to work with people who were not much older than me, who had showed up to work with a guy who they didn't think would ever have a chance to be the president of the United States. And 2 years later, they were working in the White House, crafting policy and programs for the communities that they came from, many of whom never felt like had ever been represented at the table before, especially not at the federal level. And I saw that kind of passion and commitment of people who felt like they showed up every day and what they did really impacted the communities they came from. And that was just completely a type of community that I wanted to be a part of, and the type of work that I wanted to do. The second piece was that I saw the power of a president to change the lives of millions with the stroke of a pen. When Obama signed the Affordable Health Care Act to give millions of Americans healthcare who had never had healthcare before, it was just an incredible moment to see the power of someone in elected office to really change outcomes and have a massive impact on communities really overnight. So fast forward, I graduated from school. I went to work for the Obama campaign. I started off interning in the campaign office in Chicago. I interned for a woman who is named Karine Jean-Pierre. She's the now current press secretary for the White House. And it was a really cushy job. I helped people there kind of in an administrative role, but I quickly realized that I wasn't really learning a ton. I was good at the job, but I wasn't really learning a ton. So I moved out to a really small town in Eastern Iowa, and I became a community organizer. It was a town that had been really hard hit by economic downturns, and I organized people who were folks who worked at big factories, former school teachers, janitors, just really completely across the board. And for the first time, I really felt like I met kind of the people behind the numbers that politicians talked about. And I learned firsthand the power of organizing people to drive change and drive social impact. And I learned and saw the power of ordinary people to really do extraordinary things, and was able to witness just the change in how people who felt that they were just a school teacher or just a mom or just a janitor really found their community and found their ability to mobilize their neighbors to change things in their local community. And that, again, was just incredibly powerful, an experience for me, and something that helped me learn about how to impact change in the world. Over the following few years, I really thought about my ability to impact change in terms of electing people at the federal level and at the state level who would move forward policies and programs that I thought would impact people's lives. I got the chance to work for the former governor of Virginia, who, again, overnight restored voting rights for 200,000 people who had been formerly incarcerated, gave them back their voice in a democracy, and saw the power of that, and saw how state and local government really had the power to impact real change in people's lives in a way that sometimes the federal government could not. As was shared earlier, and thank you, I started working for Hillary Clinton about 6 months before she announced her presidential campaign. And I ran her campaign in Virginia, so had the opportunity to run a $10 million team, large team, registering about 20,000 voters and engaging millions of people in the final few months. And I learned, again, really learning that I love kind of leading large organizations and working with people to gain new skills and deliver on something that felt like it was going to have a really big impact. As many people know, even though it was many years ago, the stakes of that election felt incredibly high. And that, again, was my path towards having impact, electing what I had hoped at the time would have been the first female president for our country. And then here's another theme. She lost. And I had to kind of revisit and think about, what did that journey look like for me? So this lever that I had in terms of electing people to serve the communities I care about was no longer really there. And so at the time I was 27, and I didn't really know much about what else happened in the world outside of kind of that one lever that I had been focused on. And so another theme, I kind of got curious about what else was out there and how were other people having impact. And I really sought to learn and just be humble and see what else was going on, and search for a new path. So I spent about 4 months talking to people, which is another theme you will hear. I like to talk to people. And I talked to folks, maybe 200 people over the course of those months, who were in philanthropy, who led their own nonprofits, who worked in technology, who worked for local government, people who worked in women's fashion, trying to create clothes that empowered women to show up and feel like they were part of the company that they were trying to work for. So all across the way, I really started to look for new ways to have impact. And at the time, as was shared, I had the opportunity to join a company called Meetup. Maybe some of you all have heard of it. And that company supported 250,000 organizers around the world who were creating communities in real life. And it was 2017, so kind of the allure of social media to connect the world and to be totally a force for good had kind of started to fade. And I joined this company, and my whole job was to support these individuals in programs and creating a product that would serve them in their ability to create in real life communities. And again, I learned a completely new skill set that I never had. I learned about the power of technology. I learned about the power of a software product to impact, millions of people around the world with better user testing and improved programs, and to be able to see the impact of that. And those individual people who I met who were organizing communities, again, brought me back to some of the people who I had worked with shoulder to shoulder in Iowa. This time they weren't people who were mobilizing their communities to get people to vote, but they were people who were teaching women to code in Mumbai and getting people jobs. They were people who were gathering formerly incarcerated people in the US to help get them trained and get job skills. Real life-changing work. So was it a nonprofit? No. Did it fit on the path that I thought I was going to have? No. Was it improving people's lifetime outcomes at scale with technology? Yes, in a massive way. And I spent many years there really learning about the power of technology. And at the time, I was interested in working for a younger company, kind of growing my skill set. I was interested in healthcare. And I'll share a bit more about that experience because an opportunity I had at the next company allowed me to put me on the path that I'm on now in terms of working with government. So I joined a healthcare company that was shared earlier. Its focus was to diversify clinical trials in the US and open up new treatments to patients who had never been asked to participate in trials before. When I was there, two things happened. There was a global pandemic, as we all remember, and that gave me the chance to lead a project that was the first time I saw the power of industries kind of coming together to solve a problem that government couldn't solve on their own. So I led a project that was funded by the creator of OpenAI, ChatGPT, now much more famous than I think he was back then. It was led by a leading Harvard epidemiologist, and the project was designed to support state and local governments in the US in better understanding the COVID prevalence within their community. And it was a combination of academia, a technology company, philanthropy, and government coming together to create something for government that they really couldn't do on their own, but that they desperately needed to better understand where to put their resources in the early days of the pandemic. That experience really energized me, and it kind of connected me back to my roots around supporting government to be more effective in delivering programs and services, and the power of what can happen when you bring kind of different sets of people together to solve a problem. And again, I got curious. That was an opportunity that I really enjoyed leading and was fascinated by the power of what can happen when different people are working together. And so I thought about it, I wrote about it, and I kind of came into those summer months and saw many of the failings of how the government responded to support people in need during the pandemic, massive failings of social safety net programs, people unable to get access to benefits, unemployment insurance, all of these things that we thought would be available weren't. And a lot of it was a failing of technology. And I kind of got curious. I wanted to understand why. Why was it so hard for state and local governments to use modern technology to serve residents? Were there places where it was being done well? Why was it being done well? And so again, I started to talk to people. I was interested in learning kind of why this was happening, not throwing up my hands and saying that it just wasn't, but trying to better understand why. And at that point, I left the company that I was working for and I kind of refocused. I joined the Burn Center for Social Change, which I mentioned earlier, where I am now, which is a whole center that's kind of dedicated to how to support people in government, better leverage technology to solve public problems. And over the last 2 years, I've spent time learning. It's been a massive learning experience in terms of how we can support people in government to better deliver services and what are some of the challenges and how can we pilot new ways for people to come together and work together on shared problems. And so kind of sometimes I used to come to these talks and I would feel like the person who was leading it at the end of the day had, I don't know, I just figured that they had the job that they would be in for 50 years or something like that at the end of the talk. But that's never the case. So when I think about kind of what's next or what's interesting to me, where I focus a lot of my time and where I think a lot about and try to find people to talk to who are similarly interested, are two pieces, which is how can kind of government, primarily state and local, be better listeners and designers of programs for residents? And in turn, how can that better design and better program delivery restore people's trust in government, which I think is a massive challenge that we have and is critical to communities and democracy, specifically here in the US. And the second piece is, again, given my path and given my time in startups, I'm interested in how, social entrepreneurs, private sector entrepreneurs can be better connected to the problems of government, and how they can be better connected to be designing products and programs and improving programs that can support these goals that I've talked about. I often find that these industries are very separated, and I'm interested in ways in which that, again, people across industries who have different experience can come together to work together on a shared problem. So that's a bit about my path. And I would say that to some, they might find it winding, but I will end and go into the more exciting kind of question phase and hear from you all on three pieces that I have kind of held near and dear as I think about how I spend my time. And I would say that everyone on this call is incredibly qualified and doing so many interesting kind of world-changing projects. So I offer them up to you if they're helpful. So the first is, I would say, be committed to the questions you want to answer, not a prescribed path. Second is focus on learning. So really focusing on your own learning. I think that there are times where you will be in roles and in projects where you are learning a lot and you are advancing, kind of better understanding those questions that you're trying to solve or you're trying to answer. And there are times when you're not, you made a decision and you went to an organization and it didn't quite pan out to be what you thought it would be, and so my third is, when you're stuck or you feel like you aren't where you want to be, have the courage to recreate, and to say that you have more to learn and that you might not know where you want to be, but you have the tools to figure out how to get there, and be surprised at what might come your way when you're kind of in that headspace and able to kind of listen and learn, and recreate your own path. So the last thing I will say is that you are the only customer of your own journey. So no one else is going to win or lose based on what you are doing to a certain degree. So remember that it's yours and you have the power to create it. You have the power to change it. And you definitely have the capabilities to do that. So thank you so much for inviting me here today. I hope that some of the things I shared are helpful. Again, I'm going to toss my email and LinkedIn in the chat, and really look forward to engaging with you all now, and also look forward to getting messages and anything I can do to support your journey. So I will pause there and toss my info in the chat.
Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing that introduction. It was very enlightening, and I know that I personally will take that advice to heart. Just a reminder to the Millennium Fellows to please drop any questions that you have into the chat, and I'll be able to field them later on. But I do have some questions prepared for you, Kate. So I'll get started. In social impact, working with and not for communities is crucial. So for Millennium Fellows working on various community outreach and community development projects, how can we make sure that we are centering community perspectives in the development of our projects?
Yeah, so I would say one, I think the tactics look different wherever you are. But I think that, thanks, James. I think that as you all are building projects, you all are either the leaders of those projects or you're influencing the leaders of those projects. So I would say that building it in from the beginning is really critical. I think that if you have the capacity to use and leverage different tools to help you gain a better insight, I think that's key as well. But I would say it's just about kind of defining like what are those points that you're really working alongside community, specifically not once you already think you have the problem that needs to be worked on, but how are you really partnering with people at the right moments where you're going to give people the ability to truly impact the project, not just give feedback. So we think a lot about it in terms of how we're working shoulder to shoulder with communities in terms of the actual problem definition, like how are people experiencing this and what does this look like? Not just when it gets to here's what we think should happen and what do you think about this, but really making sure you're identifying kind of those critical pieces, and that you have the right process and resources dedicated to being able to equitably engage those communities, and listen to their feedback along the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Making sure that community perspectives are part of the process and not just the end solution.
Yeah.
So we have another question. As you explained, technology often innovates faster than policy and government can keep up. If you don't mind sharing, what are some of the recommendations that you have for young fellows passionate about social justice through technology when they might feel like policy can't keep up to the technology that they're innovating?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a hard question, but I think my perspective here would be I think about policy and implementation as two different things. Unfortunately, they should be better tied than they are, but often you have policymakers who are making policies, and then policies are shifted, and then you have the implementation side of it. So the good news there is that I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of how a policy is implemented. And what I would encourage that person to do and to think about is, are there policies that they care about that have already been passed, that they can use technology or work towards to help those policies be better implemented? And I would say that given what I have seen, I would bet the answer is yes, because I think that we focus a ton in terms of the policies and the laws being passed, and then not in terms of there's just not much light on how things are delivered until something is really, really, really has failed, and there's a lot of room in between to shift and to have, I mean, just massive impact on millions of people, in terms of better implementing and better leveraging technology to engage communities to serve them.
Yeah, for sure. Just another question before I open it up to the rest of the chat. You spoke about a theme of loss and having to redirect after challenges block your path, which is what led you to interview some 200 people looking for ways to have impact. At times, implementing projects, especially in arenas of social justice and public good, becomes difficult. How can young leaders navigate challenges of implementation and recreate the process?
I would think that the people on this call are probably your community to ask that, because I think you all are in it day to day. But I guess the just quick feedback that I would have is, again, coming back to the three pieces that I shared at the end, which is being really clear in terms of what your focus is and what questions you're trying to solve, and being really clear and okay to recreate. So seeing that if you've been on a path and that path is not driving the impact that you wanted, or you thought that you would be able to get somebody on board when something was framed in a certain way, but that's just not working. If that question and that mission is still your North Star, again, having kind of the courage to recreate, if you're able to stay true to that end goal. So that's what I would say to that. Good question.
Thank you so much. So now I will open it up to the chat. If you have a question that you would like to ask for yourself, go ahead and raise your hand. The first person is Ebenezer Courier. If you're here, if you can raise your hand, and let everyone know what your question is and introduce yourself, name and country.
Okay. As Korir Ebenezer, I'm from Kenya. I'm at the University of Nairobi. And first of all, I want to appreciate our presenter for the wonderful presentation today. And I have a question, a really cool one. And the questions goes like this. What are some of the best practices or tools for engaging with diverse and marginalized communities in public decision-making processes? And how do you ensure that their voices are heard and valued? Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Nice to have you on. I would say you should email me because I think you're asking a specific question in terms of tools that are best used. And I think that there is different research around participatory budgeting or how to kind of gain insights from a certain community of people. So just drop me an email, and my email is in the chat. And I'm happy to kind of source our team and give you some thoughts in terms of what's being used or things that we've used, just depending on kind of the problem and kind of the opportunity for insights that you're trying to gain.
Thank you, Career. I also see that Layla has their hand raised. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
So, hi, Kate. Thanks
Hi.
for your speech. I am Layla. I'm a Chinese, but I'm doing my college in the UK right now. And my question is, I am wondering, how do you convince stakeholders to support your project that you know is going to bring positive change when there's no strong evidences of your impact yet?
Sure. When there's no strong evidence, yeah. So it's something that I have definitely had to do. I think first I would focus on kind of what is the big kind of game-changing opportunity that this project is going to offer. Not kind of what's the most near-term next step, but if what you're doing is implemented, like how does your community change? So I think first is like focusing on that, regardless of what you're doing today, or that you don't have 17, pieces of data to support it just yet. So I think that's focusing on kind of the opportunity. Second piece is spending quite a bit of time kind of understanding, this is kind of back to the organizing principles, but who are the people who you are trying to move and what do they care about? And how do they relate to each other? So how do their relationships with each other maybe impact a decision that gets made to fund or to support this new and budding problem? I find that a lot of the time that work isn't done. And so you don't really know who your audience is. And sometimes it's challenging to get that information, but I would spend time understanding that stuff. And the third part I would say is relationships. So while I wish that people were just totally objective and that all moments in time were the same, it's just not the case. So I would think about how to leverage relationships you have or build new relationships to make sure that the people who are having those conversations are trusted messengers to the decision makers who you need to move.
Great, thank you, Kate. We have a question from Fansha Joshua in the chat. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask the question for yourself. If not, I can ask it for you. Okay, I can go ahead and ask it. Given that technology is fast replacing jobs, how do we blend our careers to meet up?
How do we blend our careers to meet technology?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So I would say that I'm flattered that you think I have the answer to that. I think that we are figuring it out kind of day by day and honestly day by day. And I think it totally depends on the industry. There was just an article I was reading yesterday from a professor at Wharton Business School here in the US who was sharing an experiment they ran in terms of who generates better innovative ideas, current MBA students or ChatGPT. And they found with pretty rigorous testing that a few percentage points, the ChatGPT won out. And so that kind of sparked a whole conversation around how can we better work together, and what are the things that are uniquely human, and what are the things that we can be leveraging new technology to better serve our goals and advance our missions. So I don't think I have the answer, other than to say my perspective is that it's the question that we should be asking, and it's something that we should be getting curious about every day in the way we do our work, and embracing the future, because it's where we are, and it's only going to get better or more complicated. So I think we should lean in.
So true. I know that's a question that we ask in my classes every single day. So we have another hand raised from Ayomide Akinremi. If you would like to unmute and introduce yourselves, name and country, and then your question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Kate, for this session. My name is Ayomide Akinremi from Nigeria. And my question is the most important reason why everyone is here, the most biggest purpose why everyone is here is we want to initiate change. But change is not always accepted or seen as progressive. Sometimes initially it is rebelled against. How do you use innovation to help with that? How do you use tech to leverage your great idea, your awesome idea? How do you, apart from using tech to present your idea, how do you use tech to at least ease the process into the whatever community that you're trying to implement the change in?
It's a big question. So let me answer it as best I know how, and I would love to learn more about the use case that you're working through. But first and foremost, I know that this is a lot about tech. I try not to talk about tech, especially in areas that are, reticent to change, or have a certain way of doing things. I'm sure you all have heard all of these kind of mantras before. So I try to just focus on what's the shared goal, or what are the things that I can get someone to be convinced of that we should be working on together that furthers their interest. But I try not to focus on the tech. I try to kind of let the tech be part of an implementation, or moving something forward. But I try to not lead with the technology, because often I feel like it clouds the conversation, especially with folks who might not be as comfortable or on board with change. I think the other thing is that may not be the case. So there may be opportunities where someone is more interested in the technology and responding to technology than they are in terms of the program that you think should be run. And so in those cases, and there's some examples of that right now, I think with AI, where AI gives us an opportunity to leverage tech to do something that other folks might not have been ready or willing to do, but they feel the need to respond to what's going on with this new technology. So again, it just gets back to really trying to understand the stakeholders and what they're motivated by, and kind of playing up or playing down the different things the different tools that you're using to drive the outcome, but really being focused on the outcome that you're trying to drive.
Thank you once again. I see a lot more hands raised in the chat, so I will call on Motasham Asif.
Hello, everyone. This is Mohtashim Asif from Pakistan, a student of Metallurgy and Materials Engineering from Pias University, Islamabad, Pakistan. I have two questions to Kate. First of all, I would like to appreciate Kate on a wonderful session and the presentation. She has been quite good. My first question is, what do you think that is the most important aspect that the social impacts uh, the people who are aspiring to socially impact or need to work with the government? What are the factors on which they should collaborate with the government and the government should focus? And my second question is, don't you think that like we are focusing on advancement in technological innovations as an social impact, don't you think that it is dangerous as it is the artificial intelligence is quite progressing, and it is also becoming alarming, as Elon Musk said that it is growing at an alarming rate? So don't you think that we should focus on much major issues like inequalities and hunger and famine and in the underdeveloped countries? Don't you think that these are the major issues? First of all, we should focus on that. Thank you.
So I think two questions in there. One, I got to be kind of how, as folks who are trying to have social impact, how should you think about when you should work with the government and when you should not? So project-based, but I would say quite simply, when you get to the point where you think you can't have a scaled impact, or you can't actually fulfill your mission without partnering with the government, then I would figure out how to partner with them. So I would, pretty simple kind of litmus test, but again, might be different for your situation. The second one, I took your question to be kind of, there are so many challenges, we should be focused on those challenges and solving them instead of focusing so much time on AI and technology. I would just say that we have to do both. And I think that we should be spending time thinking about how this new technology, while rapidly evolving, while challenged in many perspectives, how we can leverage that to kind of improve those problems that you are working through. So that's my quick answer there.
Thank you. We have time for a few more questions. James Odiambo, if you would like to unmute, or I can say your question for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, make sure you leave time for fellows. But just in case you have time extra, Kate, I'd be curious, how you dealt with the heartbreak of the 2016 election loss under Hillary's campaign. And the context here is for fellows who will, put in a lot of effort in their projects, campaigns, initiatives, have dreams of success, but then have them fail or, not achieve the level of impact they'd hope for, which I think would be inevitable for many of us. What did you do during this period that you'd advise us to do, and what did you do that you'd advise us not to do?
Yeah, James, I want to just thank you for the question, because it's a really brave question to ask, and it's a really important question to ask. So I would say that one, I would say the loss came as a surprise, which I think almost made it worse. So what were the things that I did that I would encourage people to do, and what were the things I would encourage people not to do? So I would say that one, after kind of a decisive loss, and I think a lot of the times you might not have something as clear as that, although you may, but when something is failing and not really working, one, I think taking time away from that problem or question and really doing anything else. So I think the people on this call, I don't know you, but I would venture to guess that you are singularly committed to the cause that you're trying to serve. And I would encourage you, for, if you can do a week, 2 weeks, to not be thinking about that every day, to maybe do something that you have not been doing in the last year or two, whether it's spending time with your family or learning to cook something that you never knew how to cook, or doing something that's just completely unrelated, I think is really important to give yourself kind of the mental space to think about what that experience means to you and how you want to move on from it. The second thing I would say is like taking time to just mourn that loss. Like, you worked really hard on something and it didn't come together in the way you thought it would, and take that time to do whatever it is you need to do, cry, yell, scream, whatever, but really feel that, because if you don't, it's not going to go away. And then I think the third piece is kind of a bit of something that I wish I had done sooner, but I think that when you experience a failure, especially when it's something you've been working so hard towards, you can feel like, how do I go and talk to people about like things that I want to do when I don't have something that I'm proud to report that I just finished? And the honest answer of it is like, everyone's had something like that. And so not all of it may be as public as, Hillary Clinton's loss and Donald Trump becoming president of the United States, but everyone's experienced that in some respect. And so I would just encourage people to realize that that's loss and failure is like part of a normal professional path and a human path. And so just to get back at it and start talking to people and realize that even if you failed doing one thing in the past, like, you brought a lot of things to that problem and project and advanced it in some way, and you can apply those skills to whatever you want to as you move forward. So those would be my pieces of advice. It's a great question.
Thank you, Kate. We know failure is inevitable, so you just have to keep pushing. I do have a question for you. Will you be able to stay a little bit over time to answer the remaining questions?
Sure, I'm happy to stay, 7 to 10 more minutes if folks have questions.
Thank you so much. So I will allow Suki, I don't know if I'm saying that right, apologies, to answer, to turn on the camera. Subi Magula.
Okay, hi. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I got you. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Subi. Yeah, you said my name right. All good. I am actually a student at Northeastern University, so it's a very pleasant surprise to meet you. But I suppose, to start off giving a bit of context for my project, it involves the LGBTQ community in Uganda, and it leads to my question about with context of my project, where it's sort of the LGBTQ community in Uganda is kind of experiencing the beginnings of genocide and a lot of endangerment and policies that are meant to spread out and disperse the community and everything. Mm-hmm. And my project is sort of focused on bringing awareness and funds and support to that. But at the same time, there's sort of unfortunate duality where it's the more publicity, the more success of my project receives and the more support it receives, the less likely it will be for me to be able to safely travel back home again because of the laws there and everything, and how it's getting increasingly more dangerous to be out as an LGBTQ Ugandan and everything. And tying that to my question, it's sort of how do you prioritize the impact that you want to have and the sort of your goals and that question that you're trying to answer and everything, and your safety, because unfortunately there's often a correlation between the larger impact, the more enemies that you make in certain factions and everything. And so it's just how do you find that sort of peace between that balance, especially if God forbid your impact of your activism and everything affects your loved ones being targeted in any way and everything. So how do you find that balance between risk taking and safety?
Yeah. So first I would say I'm not the best person to answer the question. While I have been, folks have sent me very unkind and threatening notes based on things that I've done in the past, I would say it's not the same as the stuff that you're going through. So I just want to want to say that and thank you for the work you're doing. I'm excited to learn more, and I hope you email me and hope we can grab coffee or something. So yeah, I would say I'm not the right person. I would say that from organizers who I've known in the past who for some reason cannot physically be in the presence of the community that they're serving, they try to think about what are the things that they can uniquely do, even if they can't physically be safe in the communities that they're trying to serve. And they really try to be clear and distinct in terms of the organizations that they're leading and being really clear in how they're driving value. And then secondly, how they're supporting the communities on the ground who are able to do the work that for reasons of safety they're not able to do. So I think sometimes when you lead an organization or a project and you feel very tied to that, there can be a sense of guilt that you can't be there or the impact you could have had if you were there. But I would just say I think it's more opportunities to organize and to empower people and to really be kind of disciplined in what you're driving. So yeah, I completely agree with what someone just put in the chat. And feel free to email me. I think if there are folks that I could connect you to who might have a better answer to that, I'd be happy to try to do that.
Thank you, Subi, for your question. We have a few more from Anish Pani.
Hello, this is Anish. I'm a student pursuing bachelor's in economics from Xavier University in India.
Oh.
So the question is how do we address the problem of this inefficient public sector in majority of the developing and underdeveloped countries? The public sector employees they are very inefficient in devising policies and working for the people. And so in the case, recently we have seen a lot of climate calamities in many places, including Libya and other places like in Morocco also. How can we make the public sector so efficient, and along with the Millennium Fellows, so that in times of crisis, all the fellows and the public sector are efficient in order to handle such calamities.
Okay, so I'll pause, and I would love for you to stay on screen and leave and stay on mic just for a minute. My question back to you is kind of what's your issue or topic? Is there is there a specific program or a specific thing, or is it kind of bigger picture? How can we be more effective?
Likewise, we are also focusing on which is known as Project Utopia, and focus on sustainability and efficient cities. So what happens in my state, we have states in India. So in my near my locality, whenever there's a lot of rains and all, so the places they totally get drenched in the rainfall, and automatically what happens is many of the newly built roads, they totally get destroyed owing to a lot of rains because of the inefficiency of the public sector employees in handling infrastructure and policies, and also
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, because I think my first piece of advice is to get more specific, and really focusing on what the problems you're trying to solve is. I don't have the cure-all, but I would say that the pieces that I would focus on are really trying to focus very clearly on one problem that you're interested in getting curious about as to why the outcome is not what you want. And then I would try to dedicate a bunch of time to exploring that, seeing where else in similar countries it may be being done better and why that's happening. And then I would get into the work yourself. I hate to say it, but I think that if it's something that you're passionate about and you think that government is the lever, then I would try to pursue a path like that, and spend a few years maybe knocking your head against the wall. But you're going to learn a lot as to why it's not happening and how it can be done better. Or if that's not going to be your problem for the next 10 years, you want to focus on something else, because for some reason there's some intractable relationship that's not going to allow you to move that forward. Be my quick take.
So I just feel like since like you're also pursuing like MBA from Wharton, I really felt like I guess the concept of inclusive leadership, I guess it's the future, like in every aspect of life. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for sharing, Anish. I think we just have one more question from Stephen Senesi. If you would like to unmute.
Okay. My question is, if you are in a country, first of all, I'm Stephen Senesi from Sierra Leone.
Nice.
If you're in a country that have if you're in a country that have little understanding about internet, but you want to do a project, what would be the step? What would be the advice? And the second question, if you want to do a project in a particular area, but due to some political influence or some certain fight between the elders, what would be the advice also? Should the individual continue with the project or should the individual stop the project?
I think the individual should talk to other organizers.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I
can hear you. I can hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'll share and then I'm happy to put my email in the chat and go back and forth there. I would say, or I'm happy to chat in my answer. I would first talk to other people who have been successful in kind of navigating the elders that you talked about to better understand, is this a project that has the ability to get past those thresholds, or is this something that for some reason is just not going to happen? So I would talk to other people who are organizers who have dealt with similar problems and been successful or kind of made the decision that you're trying to focus on. But I think talking to people who have been doing that work in Sierra Leone and getting their advice is going to be better than the advice that I'm going to give you. And then the first question in terms of internet, I don't have enough context. Feel free to drop me an email. Happy to give you my thought, but it seems like you are trying to do a project related to internet and are having challenges. Feel free to drop me a note if there's anything I can do to be helpful. I'll engage, but I think I need to know a little bit more. And are you in Freetown? Well, I'll just add in the note.
No. Presently in Makini.
Okay. I've been to Freetown a couple of times, so anyway, good to see you.
Thank you so much for staying over, Kate. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the Q&A section for now. If you have any closing remarks, we'd appreciate them. And also, if you can leave your email once again in the chat, your LinkedIn, or ways to connect with you, and also say them aloud for our audio listeners.
Yep. So I'm just going to drop my link in the chat. I would just thank you all for taking the time to be with me, and thanks for all the incredible questions. My advice still stays the same, which is be committed to the questions that you're trying to solve. Be curious, talk to people, and lastly is if you're not on that path, or if you come across kind of a big failure or challenge, kind of have the courage to recreate and to try to figure out a new lever for you to have impact beyond maybe what you've been thinking about would be your path. So excited about the work you all are doing. I went ahead and tossed my LinkedIn and my email. My email is Kate, Kate, at the GovLab. So I'm dyslexic, THEGOVLAB.org. Feel free to drop me a note and connect with me via LinkedIn, and really inspired by the work you all are doing, and just want to thank you for everything you do. I know it is hard work, and I hope you all can rely on each other to support and answer questions and kind of troubleshoot as you are trying to figure out the next step in your journey. My pleasure, literally. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate Cummings, for a wonderful webinar. Millennium Fellows, I just have a few updates for you and announcements. We have 2 webinars coming up next week, Tuesday and Friday, so keep an eye out on your emails for further details. Schmidt Futures will be on Tuesday, and Matt Paskey will be the host on Friday. Thank you once again for joining Millennium Fellows, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much.